Imagine waking before dawn in 1693, your breath visible in the icy air of a Swiss farmhouse, knowing today could bring either a new calf or the authorities hunting you for your faith. This is no quaint tale of simple living. Welcome to the raw, relentless world of the early Amish, where survival and belief are forged in the crucible of persecution. Many people look at the Amish through romantic eyes. They picture peaceful farms, simple living, and a life free from modern stress. Nothing could be further from the truth. For the first Amish in 17th century Switzerland and Alsace, daily existence wasn't quaint. It was a brutal fight for survival. They didn't choose simplicity as a lifestyle. They endured it as a necessity while facing something even more dangerous: deadly persecution for their faith. Alright, let's head back to the 17th century. Trust me, it's going to be quite a ride. But first, get comfortable. Seriously, adjust those pillows. Pull up that blanket because where we're going, you're going to want to be cozy. The year is 1693. Your eyes crack open in the pitch darkness of a Swiss mountain winter. Unlike your warm, soft bed right now, you're lying on a thin, lumpy straw mattress that pokes through the rough linen fabric. The relentless cold hits you first. Bone-deep, penetrating cold that makes your joints ache. Your breath forms clouds in the freezing air of the shared sleeping room where your entire family sleeps. No alarm clock woke you. The rooster hasn't even crowed yet, but your body knows it's around 4:30 in the morning because your survival depends on rising before the sun. You lie still for a moment, savoring the only warmth you'll feel all day. The body heat trapped under the heavy woolen blanket shared with your younger siblings. Time to rise for the Lord's work, your father whispers from across the room. His voice is gentle, but leaves no room for delay. In your head, you're thinking, just 5 more minutes under this blanket, please. But that's not how life works here. Every moment of daylight is precious, especially in winter when the sun gives you barely 8 hours to complete all your tasks. You slip your feet onto the ice-cold wooden floor, wincing at the shock. The floorboards creak beneath your weight. This farmhouse has stood for 3 generations, and every beam and nail protests with age. No running water awaits you. No hot shower, not even indoor plumbing. Instead, you break the ice that's formed overnight in the water bucket by the door. The chunk of ice makes a satisfying crack as you drive your fist through it. You splash the frigid water on your face, gasping at the shock. It's like being slapped awake, which is pretty much the point. Thank you, Lord, for this new day, you whisper. The first prayer of hundreds you'll say before night falls again. The Amish faith isn't just something you practice on Sundays. It infuses every moment, every action, every breath. Your entire existence is a testament to your beliefs. In the corner, your mother is already stoking the cooking fire. Her hands cracked and bleeding from the constant cycle of wet work and dry winter air. No moisturizer, no healing creams, just lard mixed with herbs. When the cracks get deep enough to weep. The cow sounds restless, she says without looking up. Better check on her. Might be her time. Outside, the snow is piled up against the walls of the house, providing some meager insulation against the wind that howls down from the Alps. You pull on the same clothes you wore yesterday and the day before. The heavy wool trousers, the simple homespun shirt, and the thick woolen vest that your mother made last autumn. You only own 2 sets of clothes, one for every day and one for worship. Hold up. Let me paint you a picture of what going outside means in this place, in this time. There's no porch light to flip on, no shoveled pathway, just you opening a rough wooden door and stepping into knee-deep snow in the dark with only the stars to guide you. And these aren't just any stars. In a world without electricity, without light pollution, the night sky is an explosion of light. A river of stars so dense and bright it actually casts shadows. The barn is only 30 paces from the house, but it might as well be a mile. The wind cuts through your clothes like they're not even there. By the time you reach the barn door, your ears burn with cold, and you can't feel your fingers. Inside, it's warmer, barely. The collective body heat of the animals raises the temperature just enough that you no longer see your breath. In the dimness, the cow's eyes reflect what little light comes through the cracks in the wall. She's lying on her side, her belly heaving. You were right. She's in labor. And just like that, your carefully planned day has been completely rearranged. If the calf doesn't come easy, you might lose both of them. And if you lose the cow, your family loses milk, butter, cheese, critical food that keeps everyone alive through the winter. Easy, girl, you murmur, stroking her heaving flank. I'm here now. The stakes of every single day are incredibly high. This isn't about convenience or comfort. It's about survival. One bad decision, one moment of carelessness, and someone might not make it to spring. This reality hovers over every Amish family like a shadow. Back in the house, your siblings are waking up now, the youngest ones crying from the cold. No central heating here. The only warmth comes from the cooking fire, which has to be carefully maintained using wood that you chopped and stacked last autumn. You can't just turn up the thermostat. The cow's calving, you tell your father as you stamp snow from your boots. He nods, his face grave beneath his beard. I'll help. You get the morning porridge started for the little ones. Your father pulls on his coat and heads out into the darkness, moving with the certainty of a man who has done this 100 times before. Because he has. This is what Amish life is. Not a costume or a tourist attraction, but a relentless cycle of work that starts before dawn and doesn't end until well after sunset. In the kitchen, really just a corner of the main room. Your mother has already hung the iron pot over the fire. Inside is water and oats, the breakfast that will fuel the family's morning work. No sugar to sweeten it. Maybe a drizzle of precious honey if it's a special day, but not today. Will the cow be all right? Your mother asks quietly so the younger children don't hear. I hope so, you say. But the worry is clear in your voice. The truth is, if the cow dies, it's not just about the milk. It's about using every part of the animal to survive. The meat would be salted and preserved. The hide would be tanned for leather. The bones would be boiled for broth and then carved into tools or buttons. Nothing goes to waste because nothing can be wasted. Your 12-year-old sister is already at the table mending a tear in one of the grain sacks by the light of a single tallow candle. The smell is unpleasant. Rendered animal fat never smells good, but it's all you have. No scented candles here. No electricity. Just the skills passed down through generations. Did you hear the wolves last night? She asks, not looking up from her stitching. Her fingers move with practiced precision despite the cold that must make them stiff. Yes, you say. The wolves had been getting closer to the settlement all winter. 3 families had already lost sheep. 1 had lost a child 2 winters ago. The wolves were just doing what wolves do, trying to survive the winter, same as you. But that didn't make them any less dangerous. Your mother places a wooden bowl of steaming porridge in front of you. Eat, she says. Your father will need help with the birthing. The porridge is bland but hot, and right now that's all that matters. You eat quickly. The wooden spoon smooth from generations of use. The bowl too was carved by your grandfather. Every object in this house has a history, a purpose, a reason for existing. Nothing decorative, nothing frivolous, just the necessities of survival shaped by hands that understood the value of each resource. Outside, the first hints of dawn are starting to lighten the eastern sky. Not the sun yet, just the promise of it. Your day began hours ago, but for most of the settlement, this is when life starts to stir. You can see the smoke from neighboring chimneys rising in the still cold air. The Amish community here is small, just 12 families who have banded together, not just for faith, but for survival. Each family has different skills. The Millers are exceptional blacksmiths. The Lapps have the best producing dairy cows. The Stoltz fuses grow the most abundant wheat. Together you form a complete society, interdependent, insular, and intensely bonded by shared belief. This morning, like every morning, begins with work and prayer, interwoven so tightly, they become indistinguishable. Every task is an act of devotion. Every chore is a testament to faith. When you milk the cows, you thank God for their milk. When you chop wood, you praise Him for the trees. When you mend clothing, you express gratitude for the sheep that provided the wool. You finish your porridge and head back out to the barn, bracing yourself against the cold. Your father is kneeling beside the cow, his arms bare to the elbow and bloody to the shoulder. The calf is coming, but something's wrong. It's turned the wrong way. I need your help, he says, his voice tight with worry. We need to turn it. And just like that, you're up to your arm inside the birth canal of a cow, trying to rotate a calf that probably weighs 50 pounds while the mother bellows in pain and fear. This is not a job for the squeamish. This is not a job for the weak. This is life and death happening right here in your hands. Your father talks you through it, his voice calm despite the stakes. Feel for the head. Now the front legs. We need those to come first. The smell is overwhelming. Blood and amniotic fluid and manure all mixed together in the close air of the barn. But you don't have the luxury of being disgusted. This is just part of life. Just another Tuesday morning in 1693. Imagine working this hard before the sun is even up. Before you've properly woken, before you've had anything but a bowl of plain porridge, modern life has nothing on this. Nothing. With a final heave and a gush of fluid, the calf slides free. It lies motionless on the straw, and for a moment, your heart sinks. All that work for nothing. But then your father clears the membrane from its nose and mouth, and the little creature gasps, its sides heaving as it takes its first breath. Praise God, your father says quietly, and you echo the sentiment. The cow is exhausted, but alive, already turning her head to lick her newborn clean. You and your father sit back on your heels, covered in birth fluids, but smiling with relief. One crisis averted. The day can now proceed. But as you step outside the barn, you see a figure hurrying up the path. It's Jacob, the elder's son, and he's moving with the urgency of bad news. The authorities are coming, he gasps when he reaches you. They've arrested the Millers for holding worship. They say they're coming for the rest of us next. And just like that, the relative peace of the morning shatters. This is the other reality of Amish life in the 17th century. Constant persecution. Your faith is illegal. Your worship is a crime. Your very existence is an offense to the state church. Your father's face goes grave. Go tell your mother. We need to decide whether to run or hide. And suddenly the cow and the calf and the morning chores seem like the least of your worries. The real threat isn't starvation or wolves or winter cold. It's other humans who have decided your quiet, peaceful faith is somehow dangerous. This is the part of Amish history that gets glossed over in the tourist brochures. Before they were known for simple living and excellent craftsmanship, the Amish were radicals, religious refugees who faced imprisonment, torture, and death for their beliefs. Their rejection of infant baptism, their refusal to swear oaths or bear arms, their insistence on a church separate from state control. These were revolutionary, dangerous ideas in 17th century Europe. You run back to the house, your feet crunching in the snow, your mind racing. Will you have to flee in the night, leaving behind the home your grandfather built? Will you be separated from your community? Will you have to start over again with nothing but your faith to sustain you? These questions hover in the air as you burst through the door. The warm, smoky interior a stark contrast to the crystal-clear cold outside. Your mother looks up from where she's teaching your youngest sister to knead bread dough and she knows immediately from your face that something is wrong. The authorities is all you need to say. She closes her eyes briefly, a silent prayer passing her lips. We knew this might come, she says quietly. We'll be ready. And that's the thing about the Amish that most people don't understand. The simplicity isn't an aesthetic choice. It's practical. When you might have to flee at a moment's notice, you learn to hold lightly to material possessions. You learn to carry your real treasures, your faith, your family bonds, your skills inside you where no one can take them away. As the sun finally crests the horizon, painting the snow-covered fields in shades of pink and gold, your family gathers around the table. Despite the threat looming over you, despite the exhaustion already setting into your muscles from the morning's work, there is a moment of peace as your father reads from the worn Bible. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The words spoken in the German dialect that would eventually evolve into Pennsylvania Dutch filled a small room. They are both a comfort and a challenge. This is what it means to be Amish in 1693. To accept that following your faith may cost you everything. Outside, the new day has officially begun. The sun glints off the snow, nearly blinding in its intensity. There are still cows to milk, bread to bake, wood to chop, clothes to mend. The regular rhythm of survival doesn't stop for persecution. If anything, the threat makes each task more urgent, more precious. Because the truth is, you don't know if you'll be doing these same chores tomorrow, or if you'll be hiding in the forest or imprisoned in a cell, or trudging through the snow to another village, another temporary safe haven. The uncertainty is part of life. The danger is as constant as the cold. But so is the faith. So is the community that binds you together. So is the knowledge that you are living according to your deepest beliefs, no matter the cost. As you head back out to finish the morning chores, the weight of this reality sits on your shoulders. But there's also a kind of strength in it. The strength that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you stand for. The strength that will eventually carry the Amish across oceans to a new land where they can worship in peace. But that's a story for another time. For now, there's work to be done before the authorities arrive. There's a cow and new calf to tend to. There's a family to feed. There's a life to live, one difficult moment at a time. And as the morning light spreads across the settlement, illuminating the simple homes and barns, the Amish community continues its quiet resistance, not through violence or protest, but through the simple act of living faithfully, come what may. Your father's callous hand rests heavily on your shoulder as you walk back to the barn together. We must continue with the day's work, he says, his voice steady despite the news of authorities coming. God's will includes both our daily bread and our trials. This is how the Amish face crisis, not with panic, but with the same steady resolve that carries them through every other hardship. The threats might change, but the response remains the same. Faith, work, community. The morning sun now bathes the snow-covered fields in golden light, revealing the full extent of your family's farm. It's modest by any standard. About 10 acres of cleared land surrounded by forest. In summer, these fields will burst with wheat, rye, and vegetables. Now, in the depths of winter, they lie dormant under a thick blanket of snow. Jacob says we have until tomorrow, maybe the day after, your father explains as you fork fresh hay to the animals. The elders will meet tonight to decide whether we stay or flee. You nod, not trusting yourself to speak. You've heard stories of Amish families torn apart, parents imprisoned, children sent to be raised by state-approved families, property seized. The fear sits like a stone in your stomach, but your hands never stop working. The animals still need to be fed regardless of human problems. In the 17th century Swiss countryside, farming isn't just an occupation. It's a complete way of life that demands every ounce of your energy and ingenuity. Modern farmers with their tractors and fertilizers would hardly recognize the backbreaking labor that goes into coaxing food from the soil using only hand tools and draft animals. The plow blade needs mending, your father says, examining the crucial tool that hangs on the barn wall. We'll need to visit the millers, his voice trails off as he remembers. I suppose we'll have to do without now that they've been taken. The loss of the blacksmith is a devastating blow to the community. Without properly maintained tools, every job becomes harder, takes longer, yields less. This is the ripple effect of persecution. It doesn't just harm individuals, it weakens the entire community's ability to survive. I can try to straighten it with the hammer you offer, though you know your skills are nowhere near those of the Miller family who've been smiths for generations. Do what you can, your father agrees. I need to check the root cellar stores. We may need to pack food if we leave. The root cellar dug beneath the main house is where your family stores the food that will see you through winter. Potatoes, carrots, turnips, cabbages, and apples are carefully arranged on shelves and in bins. Preserved meats hang from hooks in the ceiling. Jars of pickled vegetables line the walls. Every item represents hours of work during the growing season, a physical manifestation of your family's labor. If you have to flee, you'll leave most of it behind. The thought makes your chest tight with anxiety. Your 14-year-old brother, Hans, joins you in the barn. His face is serious beyond his years. "I overheard father," he says quietly. "Are we leaving?" "Maybe," you answer honestly. The Amish don't shield their children from hard realities. Even the youngest understand that their faith comes with a cost. "We'll know after the elders meet." Hans nods and picks up a pitchfork without being asked. Together you clean out the cow stalls in companionable silence. The steaming manure creating brief clouds in the cold air. Nothing is wasted. The manure will be spread on the fields come spring, returning nutrients to the soil. "I don't want to leave," Hans finally says, his voice small. "I like it here." You rest your hand on his shoulder, feeling the bony frame beneath his woolen shirt. "Home isn't a place," you tell him, repeating what your mother has told you. "Home is our family, our community, our faith." He looks unconvinced, but nods anyway and returns to his work. Children grow up fast in this world. They have to. By mid-morning, the entire family is engaged in the day's tasks. Even with the threat of authorities looming, the rhythm of life continues. Your youngest siblings, ages 5 and 7, collect eggs from the chicken coop, carefully placing each one in their woven baskets. One broken egg means one less meal for the family. "Look," the 5-year-old calls excitedly. "Martha laid 2 today." Martha is what she's named her favorite hen, though naming animals is gently discouraged. When you raise creatures for food, attachment only makes the inevitable butchering more difficult. But children are children in any century. "That's good," you tell her with a smile. "God provides." Meanwhile, your mother and older sisters are engaged in the endless work of turning raw materials into usable goods. In the main room of the house, they've set up the spinning wheel and loom. The click-clack of the shuttle passing back and forth creates a soothing backdrop to their quiet conversation. The wool they're working with came from your own sheep sheared last spring. It's been cleaned, carded, spun into thread, and now is being woven into cloth that will eventually become clothing. In the 17th century, there's no running to the store for a new shirt. Everything must be made by hand, a process that takes months from start to finish. The clothes you're wearing right now represent hundreds of hours of labor, from raising the sheep to the final stitching. "We should focus on making warm socks today," your mother says practically. "If we need to travel, good socks will be essential." It's these practical considerations that have allowed the Amish to survive despite persecution. They are nothing if not prepared. Outside, a horse and cart appears on the path leading to your farm. For a terrifying moment, everyone freezes, fearing it's the authorities arriving early. But then your father relaxes. "It's just Bishop Joder," he says, relief evident in his voice. The bishop is the spiritual leader of your small community, an elder chosen for his wisdom and steadfast faith. As he approaches, you can see his beard is heavy with frost and his eyes are grave beneath his broad-brimmed hat. "Jacob." He greets your father using the German pronunciation. "May I come in?" "Of course," your father says, helping the older man down from his cart. "We've just heard about the Millers." Inside, your mother quickly pours a cup of hot tea for the bishop. One of the few luxuries the Amish allow themselves. Tea is precious, imported and expensive, saved for special occasions or to honor important guests. "The situation is worse than we feared," Bishop Joder says after taking a grateful sip. "The authorities have new orders from Bern. Any found practicing Anabaptist worship will be imprisoned. Children will be removed and placed with state-approved families." A collective gasp goes around the room. The persecution has been building for years, but this represents a devastating escalation. "What should we do?" your father asks. Though everyone already knows the answer, "We must leave." The bishop says simply, "Not just your family, but all of us. This area is no longer safe." And just like that, the decision is made. By this time tomorrow, you will abandon the only home you've ever known. The news settles over the family like a heavy blanket. No one speaks for a long moment. Then your mother stands smoothing her apron with practical hands. "Well, then we better get to work." There's much to prepare. This resilience, this ability to accept radical change and immediately begin adapting is the hallmark of Amish life. There's no time for self-pity, no space for questioning God's plan. There is only forward movement. The rest of the day transforms into a carefully orchestrated dance of preparation. Every family member down to the youngest has tasks to complete. The most important possessions must be sorted from those that will be left behind. Food must be packed. Clothing must be gathered. Tools must be selected. Only the most essential can come with you, as everything must be carried or loaded onto the single family cart. You're sent to the barn to prepare the animals. Some will come with you. The horses, a milk cow, a few chickens. The rest must be given away to non-Amish neighbors who have sometimes shown kindness. It breaks your heart to lead the young calf away from its mother, knowing they'll never see each other again. But sentiment can't override practicality. The young cow is simply too weak to make the journey. Take good care of her, you tell the neighbor's son, who has come to collect the animals. He nods solemnly, understanding the gravity of what's happening, even though his family doesn't share your faith. My father says to tell you that you can come to our farm if you need to hide, he whispers, glancing around nervously as if the authorities might already be watching. We have a space in the hayloft. This small kindness nearly brings tears to your eyes. Thank you, you say. May God bless you for your mercy. As the afternoon wears on, more visitors arrive. Other Amish families coming to confirm plans, share resources, offer help. This is the strength of the community. No one faces hardship alone. The women gather in the kitchen cooking an enormous meal from the perishable foods that can't be taken alone. It's a strange feast born of necessity rather than celebration. But there's something beautiful about it, too. One last moment of abundance before the lean journey ahead. We'll travel together to the Emmental Valley. Bishop Joder explains to the gathered men. I have contacts there who will shelter us temporarily. From there, we may need to move further east, perhaps even to Alsace or the Palatinate. These places sound impossibly distant to you. You've never traveled more than 10 miles from your home. The world beyond the mountains is as unknown as the far side of the moon. Outside, the winter sun is already beginning to sink toward the horizon. Days are short this time of year, and darkness comes early. By unspoken agreement, everyone plans to leave before dawn tomorrow, traveling under cover of darkness to avoid detection. As you help load the family cart with essential supplies, your father pulls you aside. I have a special task for you, he says, his voice low. From inside his vest, he pulls out a small leather pouch. This contains the family Bible and our most important documents. If we're stopped and searched, these would be taken and destroyed. I need you to hide them on your person. The responsibility weighs heavily. The Bible, hand-copied and passed down for generations, is arguably your family's most precious possession. It's not just a religious text, but a family record with births, marriages, and deaths carefully noted on the inside pages. I'll guard it with my life, you promise, tucking the pouch beneath your own clothing. Your father's eyes are solemn. Not with your life, he corrects gently. No possession, not even the Bible, is worth that price. But guard it with your care and wisdom. This perspective, valuing human life above material goods while still recognizing the importance of certain objects, is deeply Amish. It's a worldview that allows them to repeatedly lose their homes and possessions without losing their identity or purpose. As evening approaches, the family gathers one last time around the table in the home your grandfather built. The meal is unusually lavish. Fresh bread, preserved meats, the last of the autumn apples, even a small honey cake that your mother had been saving for a special occasion. The unspoken knowledge that this is your last night in this house hangs in the air. We should each take a moment to share a memory of this place, your mother suggests, her practical nature giving way to sentiment just this once, something to carry with us. One by one, family members speak. Your youngest sister talks about the time a fox kid wandered into the yard and played with her doll. Your brother remembers helping grandfather build the barn extension during a summer so hot the pitch melted off the roof. Your mother recalls the birth of each child beneath this roof. her voice growing thick with emotion despite her efforts to remain stoic. When it's your turn, you find yourself speaking of simple moments. The way sunlight filters through the small window in early morning. The familiar creaks of the floorboards. The smell of bread baking that always meant home. These aren't grand memories. There are no lavish celebrations or extravagant experiences in Amish life. The moments that matter are small, ordinary, easily overlooked. Yet they form the fabric of a life that, despite its hardships, has its own profound richness. After the meal, your father reads from the Bible one last time in this house. His voice is steady as he chooses a passage that has guided Amish life for generations. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be. Also, the words take on new meaning tonight as you prepare to leave behind nearly everything you own. What remains are the intangibles: faith, family, bonds, community, skills, knowledge. These are the true treasures that no authority can confiscate, no persecution can diminish. As darkness falls completely, you make one last circuit of the farm. The familiar buildings are just silhouettes against the star-filled sky now. The well where you've drawn water every day of your life. The apple tree your grandfather planted as a sapling. The stone wall you helped repair last summer. Each landmark is etched in your memory, becoming part of the internal map you carry. You won't cry. Tears are a luxury you can't afford right now. Instead, you silently thank God for the safety this place has provided for as long as it could, and you ask for strength for whatever lies ahead. Back inside, the house is transformed. Most of the furniture remains too bulky to transport, but the personal touches that made it a home are gone. Beds have been stripped, shelves emptied, walls bare, except for the simple pegs where clothing once hung. Try to sleep, your mother advises, though she must know it's almost impossible given the circumstances. Tomorrow will be long and difficult. You lie down on your straw mattress one last time, fully clothed and ready to depart at a moment's notice. The familiar scratching of the straw against your skin, the weight of the woolen blanket, the sounds of your siblings breathing nearby. All of it feels precious now that it's about to be lost. Your mind races with fears and questions. Where will you sleep tomorrow night? Will the authorities catch you on the road? What will happen to the animals left behind? Will you ever return to this place? But beneath the anxiety runs a current of something else, a deep unshakable faith that has sustained the Amish through generations of persecution. Whatever happens, you are not alone. God travels with you. Your community surrounds you. Your family remains intact. And perhaps someday there will be a place where you can worship according to your conscience without fear. A place where the simplicity of Amish life can be a choice rather than a necessity of constant flight. That hope, fragile but persistent, finally allows you to drift into an uneasy sleep. Your last night in the only home you've ever known. On the eve of a journey that will test every aspect of your faith and resilience. Outside, a light snow begins to fall, gradually erasing the day's footprints and preparing a clean white canvas for whatever tomorrow may bring. A firm hand on your shoulder pulls you from sleep. It's still pitch black, but your father's silhouette is visible against the faint starlight coming through the small window. It's time, he whispers. Your body feels leaden with exhaustion. You couldn't have been asleep for more than 2 hours, but there's no time to shake off the grogginess, no time for complaints. This is life or death. The room is alive with quiet movement as your siblings gather their few personal belongings. No one speaks above a whisper. Even the youngest children, barely old enough to understand the danger, sense the gravity of the moment and remain silent. Outside, the pre-dawn air hits you like a slap. The cold so intense it burns your lungs. Fresh snow blankets everything, transforming the familiar landscape into something alien and pristine. Your footprints are the first to mar its perfect surface. Each step marking your family's desperate escape. Look at that, your father murmurs, gesturing upward. The night sky is a riot of stars, more brilliant than you've ever seen them. The Milky Way stretches across the heavens like a glowing ribbon, and for a moment, despite everything, you feel a sense of wonder. This beauty exists regardless of human troubles. It will remain long after your footprints have been erased. God's lanterns to light our way, your mother says, joining you with a bundle in her arms. The family cart stands ready, loaded with everything you could salvage. The horse stamps impatiently, its breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Your father helps your youngest siblings climb onto the cart, burying them under blankets and furs to ward off the deadly cold. We walk alongside, he tells you and your older siblings. Save the horse's strength for the mountain paths. As you prepare to leave, your mother pauses at the doorway of your home. She places her hand on the rough wooden frame. A silent goodbye to the place where she bore and raised her children. Then, without looking back, she joins your father at the front of the cart. Your journey begins in silence. Broken only by the creak of wooden wheels on packed snow and the occasional snort from the horse, the sky gradually lightens to deep blue as you follow the narrow path through the forest, heading toward the meeting point where the other families will gather. Remember when we found those blueberry bushes right over there? Your sister whispers, pointing to a snow-covered thicket. And came home with purple mouths, you add with a small smile. Mother thought we'd caught some strange disease. These memories float up like bubbles as you pass familiar landmarks for the last time. Each curve in the path, each distinctive tree or rock formation holds a story, a piece of your life that you're now leaving behind. After an hour of careful travel, you reach the clearing where other Amish families are gathering. The sight steals your breath. Not just 3 or 4 families as you expected, but nearly 20 carts loaded with people and possessions. The entire settlement has chosen to flee rather than face imprisonment or forced conversion. Jacob, your father calls softly, spotting the elder's son who had brought the warning yesterday. The young man hurries over, his face drawn with exhaustion. You made it. Good. We're almost ready to depart. In the center of the clearing stands Bishop Joder, conferring quietly with several men who form the church leadership. Despite the circumstances, they maintain the calm dignity that characterizes Amish elders. There's no panic, no shouting, just deliberate organization as they prepare to lead their people to safety. Brothers and sisters, the bishop finally calls. His voice carrying just far enough to reach everyone without risking detection. Before we begin our journey, let us join in prayer. Without hesitation, every person in the clearing, from the oldest grandmother to the smallest child, kneels in the snow. The discomfort means nothing compared to the act of worship that binds you together. This is the essence of Amish life. Not the plain clothes or the simple tools, but this a community knit so tightly together by shared faith that they will abandon everything rather than compromise their beliefs. The bishop's prayer is short but profound, asking not for easy passage or material comfort, but for strength, courage, and unwavering faith. When he finishes, a chorus of whispered amens rises from the assembled families. We travel as one body, he instructs, as people rise and prepare to move out. The strongest among us will help the weakest. No one will be left behind. As if to demonstrate this principle, you watch as 2 young men lift an elderly woman onto their cart, carefully tucking blankets around her frail form. Nearby, a mother with a newborn hands her 3 older children over to a neighboring family whose cart has more space. Are you afraid? Asks a voice beside you. You turn to find Margaret, the blacksmith's daughter, walking alongside you. At 16, she's your age exactly, born just 3 days apart. In another life, perhaps you might have courted her someday. Now, who knows if your paths will remain connected? Yes, you admit because honesty is valued above pride in your community, but not enough to turn back. She nods, understanding perfectly. My father says, God tests faith through fire. This is our fire. Her father, the community's blacksmith, was among those arrested yesterday. No one knows if they'll ever see him again. The procession begins to move through the forest, following trails known only to the local Amish. Your community has always prepared for this possibility, scouting escape routes and memorizing paths that avoid main roads. The knowledge is passed down from father to son, mother to daughter, another layer of survival strategy in a world that often turns hostile. As the weak winter sun finally crests the horizon, your caravan reaches a steep mountain path that will take you over the ridge and away from immediate danger. The going is painfully slow, with each family helping the others navigate the treacherous terrain. Carts must be partially unloaded at the steepest points, their contents carried by hand until the path levels out again. "Look," your brother Hans says during one such pause, pointing back the way you came. In the valley below, barely visible through the trees, you can see mounted figures moving along the main road. The authorities searching for those who have fled. Your departure was not a moment too soon. "They won't find our trail until the snow melts," your father says confidently. "By then, we'll be far away." By midday, your group has reached a plateau high in the mountains. The bishop calls for a brief rest, knowing that people and animals alike need to recover their strength. Food is shared communally. Hard bread, dried meat, a few precious apples saved from the autumn harvest. No one takes more than they need, and no one goes without. "I've never seen these mountains from this side," you comment to your father as you share a piece of bread. "Nor I," he admits. "We travel into the unknown now, trusting God to guide us." This willingness to step into uncertainty is fundamental to Amish faith. From the beginning, they have been a people defined by journeys from Switzerland to Alsace, later to the Palatinate, eventually across the ocean to America. Each migration driven by the search for religious freedom. Each departure marked by the same courage you're witnessing today. As the caravan prepares to continue, Bishop Joder gathers everyone for an announcement. "Tonight, we will reach the home of Brother Christoph," he explains. "He is not of our faith, but he sympathizes with our plight and has offered his barn as shelter. We will rest there before continuing to the Emmental Valley." A murmur of relief passes through the group. The prospect of shelter, even a barn, is welcome after hours in the bitter cold. The journey resumes, and as afternoon turns to evening, fatigue settles into every muscle. The children on the cart have long since fallen asleep despite the jolting and swaying. Even the adults move with the heavy mechanical steps of extreme weariness. Just when it seems you can't go another step, lights appear in the distance. The isolated farmstead of Brother Christoph. The man who greets your caravan is not Amish, as the bishop explained. His clothes are more colorful, his beard trimmed in the fashion of the outside world, but his eyes are kind as he directs the families into his spacious barn. "You must be quiet," he warns. "Patrols have been through the area. They may return." Inside the barn, the space is quickly organized into family areas. Fresh hay provides insulation from the cold ground. Lanterns are kept low to avoid drawing attention. The atmosphere is one of exhausted relief. You've made it through the first day of exile. As the community settles in for the night, something remarkable begins to happen. Without any formal announcement, people begin to gather in the center of the barn. Someone starts humming a hymn and others join in, keeping their voices low but harmonizing with practiced ease. This is one of the most sacred aspects of Amish life. The singing hymns passed down through generations, sung without instrumental accompaniment in the distinctive slow drawn-out style that allows for complex harmonies. The melodies stretch back centuries, connecting you to ancestors who sang these same songs in similar moments of trial. "Will we hold worship tomorrow?" you ask your father quietly. "It's Sunday." "Of course," he replies, surprised you would even question it. "Our Sabbath travels with us." This commitment to regular worship, regardless of circumstances, is the cornerstone of Amish life. While other aspects of their practice might adapt to necessity, where they live, how they travel, what work they do, the rhythm of worship remains constant. As the impromptu singing session winds down, families retreat to their designated spaces. Your mother arranges the blankets you've brought, creating pallets on the hay for each family member. It's a far cry from even your simple home. But no one complains. Compared to what might have happened had you stayed. This discomfort is a blessing. "Tell us a story, Father." Your youngest sister pleads as everyone settles in for the night. "I'm too afraid to sleep." Your father considers for a moment, then nods. "I'll tell you about our people and why we live as we do." The children gather close as he begins the familiar narrative. How the Anabaptist movement began in Switzerland. How their forebears rediscovered the practice of adult baptism through careful study of Scripture. How they faced persecution for refusing to baptize infants or swear oaths to secular authorities. And that is why we must sometimes leave our homes, he concludes gently, because we answer first to God, not to earthly powers. It's a story you've heard dozens of times, but tonight it takes on new significance. You're not just hearing about history, you're living it, adding your own chapter to the long saga of a people determined to worship according to their conscience, no matter the cost. As your siblings drift off to sleep, you remain awake, the events of the day replaying in your mind. The Bible pouch still rests against your chest, a tangible reminder of your responsibility. From where you lie, you can see other families similarly settled throughout the barn. Some already asleep, others quietly talking, a few praying together. Despite everything, the loss of your home, the uncertain future, the physical hardship, there's a peculiar sense of peace in this moment. Your community remains intact. Your faith continues unbroken. In the most essential ways, you've lost nothing. This realization doesn't erase the grief or fear, but it does place them in perspective. The Amish have never defined themselves by physical location or material possessions. Their identity rests in their faith, their community bonds, their distinctive practices of worship and daily life. All of these travel with you, homeless, but not rootless. Morning comes too soon. Pale light filtering through the cracks in the barn walls. Despite your exhaustion, you wake automatically at the usual time. Years of pre-dawn rising have trained your body to stir with the first hint of daylight. Around you, the barn is already coming alive with quiet activity. Women are organizing a simple breakfast from the food they've brought. Men are checking on the horses and making minor repairs to carts. Children are being assigned small tasks to keep them occupied and feeling useful. Your mother hands you a piece of bread and a small cup of milk, precious rations that must be carefully portioned to last the journey. Eat quickly, she says. The bishop has called for worship to begin at sunrise. Sunday worship is the center of Amish religious life. A service that normally lasts 3 to 4 hours. Today it will be abbreviated out of necessity, but no one considers skipping it entirely. Even in flight, the Sabbath must be honored. The community gathers in the center of the barn, men on one side, women on the other, as is customary. There are no pews, no altar, no decorations, just people seated on hay bales or standing along the walls. The Amish have never needed special buildings or elaborate rituals for worship. Any place can become a church when the community gathers in faith. Bishop Joder stands before the assembled group, his weathered face solemn in the dim light. Beside him are 2 ministers and a deacon. The simple leadership structure that guides Amish religious life. Brothers and sisters in Christ, the bishop begins. We gather in unusual circumstances, but with unchanged purpose to worship our God and seek His guidance. The service follows the familiar pattern: hymns sung in German scripture readings, a sermon delivered without notes, prayers offered spontaneously by various members of the community. The content, however, speaks directly to your current situation, drawing from biblical accounts of exile and persecution to offer comfort and perspective. Like the Israelites in the wilderness, the bishop preaches, we journey toward a promised land not of milk and honey, but of religious freedom. And like them, we must trust God to provide manna for each day without worrying about tomorrow's bread. As you listen, you realize this is perhaps the purest expression of Amish worship you've ever experienced. Stripped of even the modest comforts of a regular meeting house, gathered in secret like the early Christians, your community has reduced faith to its essential elements: our shared belief, mutual support, simple devotion. The service concludes with a moment of silent prayer. Each person communing privately with God before the practical demands of the day resume as people begin to disperse. Brother Christoph enters the barn, his expression troubled. You must leave immediately, he tells the bishop. A patrol was asking questions in the village below. They may come this way. The news sends a ripple of controlled urgency through the group. Within minutes, the barn is a flurry of activity as families gather their belongings and prepare the carts. The peaceful interlude of worship gives way to the harsh reality of continued flight. Your father helps your mother and younger siblings onto the cart while you and Hans harness the horse. There's a practiced efficiency to your movements. Now, this is the second time in 2 days you've had to pack up and flee. Already, it's becoming routine. Thank you for the risk you've taken for us, Bishop Joder tells Brother Christoph as the caravan prepares to depart. May God protect you from any consequences. The man nods solemnly. Travel safely. I'll misdirect any who come asking. This is another aspect of Amish survival that's rarely documented. The network of sympathizers who, while not sharing their faith, completely respect their commitment enough to offer aid. These allies are crucial links in the underground movement of Anabaptist refugees across Europe. As your caravan slips away from the farmstead, taking lesser-known paths through the mountains, you find yourself walking beside Margaret again. The blacksmith's daughter looks even more tired than yesterday. Dark circles under her eyes betraying a sleepless night. I keep thinking about my father, she admits quietly, wondering if he's cold, if they're feeding him, if he's being mistreated. What can you say to comfort her? Empty reassurances would dishonor her worry. Instead, you simply walk alongside in supportive silence, occasionally helping her navigate difficult parts of the path. This too is fundamentally Amish. The willingness to bear witness to another's suffering without trying to minimize it or explain it away, to simply be present, offering practical help rather than hollow words. As the day progresses, the terrain becomes increasingly challenging. The path narrows, winding along steep mountain slopes where a misstep could be fatal. The carts must be led with extreme care, sometimes requiring 4 or 5 men to guide a single vehicle around particularly treacherous turns. How much farther? Hans asks during a brief rest stop, his young face lined with exhaustion. 2 days to the Emmental Valley, your father replies, if God wills it. The phrase, if God wills it, is no empty saying among the Amish. It reflects a deep acceptance that human plans are always contingent, always subject to divine intervention. You make every practical effort, use all your skill and knowledge, but ultimately the outcome rests in God's hands. This worldview shapes every aspect of Amish life. It's why they reject insurance. It suggests an attempt to control the future rather than accepting God's will. It's why they avoid litigation. It tries to force justice rather than waiting for God's judgment. It's why they emphasize forgiveness over revenge. Vengeance belongs to the Lord, not to human hands. By late afternoon, your caravan reaches a relatively sheltered valley where the bishop decides you'll make camp for the night. Unlike the previous evening, there's no barn or structure to offer protection, just the forest itself. Immediately, the community begins preparing for nightfall. The men gather firewood and create simple shelters using branches and the canvas covers from the carts. The women organize food and tend to the children. The oldest boys care for the horses, ensuring they're fed and watered despite the difficult conditions. You're assigned to help build a shelter for your family, working alongside your father and brother. The labor is demanding after a full day of travel, but the physical activity keeps you warm as the temperature drops with the setting sun. Remember when we built that playhouse in the summer? Hans asks as you lash branches together to form a framework. This is just like that, only bigger. You smile at the comparison. Hans has a gift for finding connections between past joys and present challenges. A way of making even difficult situations feel manageable by linking them to familiar experiences. As darkness falls, small cooking fires illuminate the encampment, carefully tended to provide warmth without creating too much smoke that might be spotted from a distance. Families cluster around these modest flames, sharing both heat and community. Your mother has managed to make a simple stew using dried vegetables, preserved meat, and snow melted to water. It's thin and would hardly be considered a proper meal in normal times, but after a day of hard travel, it tastes like a feast. We should sing, suggests one of the elders, as people finish their meager suppers. Not hymns they might carry too far, but the working songs. And so as the night deepens, the Amish gather in small groups to sing the traditional songs that normally accompany their daily labor: planting songs, harvest songs, weaving songs. These melodies, less formal than worship hymns, but no less meaningful, celebrate the dignity of work and the rhythm of rural life. This is how the Amish face adversity, not with despair or rage but with creativity and cultural affirmation. When they cannot safely practice their faith in the usual ways, they find alternatives that maintain their essential identity while adapting to circumstances. As the singing winds down and families retreat to their makeshift shelters, You find a moment to approach Bishop Joder with a question that's been troubling you. Bishop, you ask respectfully, why does God allow this persecution? If our faith is true, why must we constantly flee? The old man considers your question thoughtfully, not dismissing it as impertinent or doubtful. The Amish encouraged sincere questioning even about difficult theological matters. The early Christians were persecuted too, he finally answers, as were the prophets before them. Perhaps it is not despite our faith being true, but because of it that we face opposition. It's not a complete answer, not a neat explanation that resolves all doubt. But it offers a framework for understanding suffering as something that can have meaning rather than being merely senseless cruelty. And remember, the bishop adds gently, Jesus never promised his followers an easy path. He promised that he would walk it with them. You nod, turning these words over in your mind as you make your way back to your family's shelter. The structure is crude, but functional branches lashed together and covered with canvas, open on one side to face the small fire that will provide warmth through the night. Inside, your younger siblings are already asleep, huddled together for warmth. Your mother sits nearby, mending a tear in one of the blankets by firelight. Your father is outside, taking his turn at the watch that will guard the encampment through the night. You should rest, your mother tells you, looking up from her work. Tomorrow will be another long day. You settle onto the bed of pine boughs that will serve as your mattress tonight, pulling a blanket over yourself. Despite the hard ground and the cold that seeps through your clothing, exhaustion quickly pulls you towards sleep. Your last conscious thought is a realization that despite everything you've lost, everything you've endured, you still have what matters most, your faith, your family, your community. In the eyes of the world, you are refugees. Homeless and hunted. But in a deeper sense, you remain rooted in what truly defines you. And as sleep finally claims you, the stars will overhead, unchanged by human troubles, eternal witnesses to both suffering and hope. Dawn arrives with a crystalline beauty that belies your circumstances. Frost coats every branch and needle in the forest, transforming the makeshift camp into a glittering wonderland. For a moment, watching the sun's first rays catch the sparkle, you almost forget you're a refugee. Your body, however, remembers. Every muscle aches from yesterday's journey. Your stomach growls insistently, a reminder that the small portions of traveling food cannot match the nourishment of regular meals back home. Beautiful, isn't it? Your father says, joining you at the edge of the camp. God's artistry doesn't stop even when our world is turned upside down. This ability to appreciate beauty amid hardship is characteristically Amish. Faith teaches you to find God's hand in everything from frost-covered pines to the most difficult circumstances. Around the camp, families are stirring. The morning routine begins with prayer, individual devotions rather than community worship. Each person or family group starting their day by reconnecting with their faith. Then comes the practical business of breaking camp, a process that happens with remarkable efficiency despite everyone's exhaustion. We're running low on bread, your mother announces as she takes inventory of the food supplies. The concern in her voice is evident. Bread isn't just food for the Amish. It's a staple that forms the foundation of almost every meal. Bishop Joder, overhearing, approaches your family's cart. We'll stop midday at a place where we can bake, he assures her. I know a mill a few hours ahead where the owner sympathizes with our cause. This news spreads quickly through the camp, bringing visible relief. Women begin checking their supply of flour, comparing notes on how much each family carries. Men discuss the logistics of baking for nearly 100 people in a single afternoon. Even the children grow more animated. The promise of fresh bread lifting spirits dampened by cold and fear. As the caravan gets underway, following a narrow path that winds through dense forest, you find yourself walking alongside Jacob, the elder's son, who brought the first warning of persecution. Did you manage to bring any yeast? He asks. His family specializes in grain farming. And his mother is known throughout the settlement for her exceptional bread. You shake your head. Everything happened too quickly, but my mother says she can make sourdough if we have time. The conversation turns to food, as discussions often do when supplies grow scarce. Jacob describes the special holiday bread his mother makes at Christmas, a rich sweet loaf studded with dried fruits and nuts. You recall the potato bread your grandmother taught you to make, which stays fresh longer than wheat bread during the winter months. These aren't just recipes you're sharing, but cultural touchstone, fragments of identity preserved through food traditions passed from one generation to the next. For the Amish, cooking isn't merely about sustenance. It's a form of cultural expression, a way of maintaining connections to ancestors and community. By midday, your caravan reaches the promised mill, a sturdy stone building perched beside a swift running stream. The mill wheel turns steadily, powered by water that hasn't yet frozen in the winter cold. Smoke rises from the chimney, a welcome sign of warmth within. The miller, a burly man with flour perpetually dusting his beard, greets Bishop Joder like an old friend. Though not Amish himself, he clearly shares some bond with your community. You can use the ovens as long as needed, he tells the bishop. I've sent my apprentices to town on errands, so we won't be disturbed. My wife has prepared soup for your people. This unexpected generosity brings tears to several women's eyes. A hot meal, something as simple as soup, suddenly become a luxury beyond price. The Amish respond to kindness with immediate action. While some families remain with the carts, keeping watch for any sign of authorities, others organize a temporary bakery in the mill's kitchen. Men bring in firewood to stoke the large brick ovens that normally provide the miller's family bread. Women unpack precious stores of flour, their movements quick and practiced despite the unfamiliar surroundings. Your mother puts you in charge of the younger children, keeping them occupied and out of the way while she joins the baking effort. You lead them to a corner of the mill's main room where the massive grinding stones slowly turn, transforming grain into flour. Take this, the miller's wife presses a small package into your mother's hands. Dried apples from our orchard for the children when the journey grows long. Such generosity from those with little to spare brings fresh tears to your mother's eyes. May God bless your kindness, she responds. The traditional Amish acknowledgement of gifts that cannot be repaid directly but must be recognized as part of the broader cycle of giving that God oversees. As your family's cart joins the slow procession moving away from the mill's safety, you notice your younger siblings' spirits have lifted considerably. Amazing what a single hot meal and fresh bread can do for morale. How physical nourishment translates so directly to emotional resilience. Look what I saved for you, your little sister whispers, pressing half a dried apple into your palm. Since you gave me some of your bread earlier. This sharing, this instinctive redistribution that ensures no one goes without while another has excess, lies at the heart of Amish community ethics. Children learn it before they can articulate the principle, absorbing the practice through countless small exchanges witnessed and experienced daily. The afternoon journey proves challenging, with the path climbing steadily into more rugged terrain. By the time Bishop Joder calls a halt for the night, twilight is already deepening into darkness and a cutting wind has begun to blow from the north, carrying the promise of snow. Camp making happens more efficiently tonight, with families applying lessons learned from the previous evening. Shelters rise quickly among the trees, positioned to block the wind and preserve heat. Small fires are lit in strategic locations, providing warmth without creating a beacon that might attract unwanted attention. Supper is a quieter fare, bread and dried meat supplemented with the few fresh items obtained at the mill. No one complains about the simplicity or scarcity. The Amish have always practiced moderation in eating, as in all things, viewing food as necessary fuel rather than a source of pleasure or entertainment. This doesn't mean they don't appreciate good cooking or take satisfaction in a well-prepared meal. Rather, their approach to food reflects their broader life philosophy: sufficiency rather than excess, function over ornament, gratitude for what's available rather than craving for what's not. After the meal, families gather around their small fires. Adults often engaged in mending clothing or repairing equipment, while children listen to stories or help with simple tasks. Despite the circumstances, these evening scenes capture something essential about Amish family life: the seamless integration of work, learning, and togetherness. At your family's fire, your father has taken out a small piece of wood and his carving knife. His hands move with practiced precision, shaping the wood with quick, controlled cuts. Your younger siblings watch, fascinated as a small animal form gradually emerges. "What is it?" your youngest brother asks, leaning closer. "A lamb," your father replies, his knife never pausing. "To remind us that Jesus is the good shepherd who watches over his flock even when they wander in the wilderness." This ability to create meaningful objects from whatever materials are at hand is another hallmark of Amish culture. Art exists not for display or status, but to reinforce values and provide practical beauty that enhances daily life. When the carving is complete, a simple but recognizable lamb that fits in the palm of a child's hand. Your father passes it to your youngest brother. Take good care of it, he instructs. And when you're afraid, remember the shepherd is always watching. The boy clutches the wooden figure tightly, his small face solemn with the responsibility of safekeeping. This isn't just a toy, but a physical reminder of spiritual protection. A tangible connection to faith that a child too young for abstract theology can nevertheless grasp and draw comfort from. As the evening deepens, Bishop Joder makes his way around the camp, stopping briefly at each family's fire. He doesn't deliver formal sermons or lengthy prayers, but offers a few words of encouragement, a scripture verse, a gentle question about any specific needs. This pastoral care, personal, practical present provides spiritual nourishment as essential as the day's bread. When he reaches your family's fire, he notices the wooden lamb in your brother's hand. A fitting symbol for our journey, he comments appreciatively. We are indeed like sheep now, trusting our shepherd to guide us through dangerous lands. Your father nods, acknowledging the connection. The children need reminders they can hold on to. Faith becomes very concrete when you're young and perhaps when you're in danger as well. The bishop stays a while discussing tomorrow's route and checking that your family has sufficient supplies. Before leaving, he places a hand on your father's shoulder, a gesture of solidarity between men who share the burden of protecting those in their care during extraordinarily difficult circumstances. As night fully descends, your family retreats to the shelter, arranging sleeping positions to conserve warmth. The youngest children sleep between adults benefiting from body heat on both sides. You and Hans take the outer positions, your adolescent bodies better able to endure the cold than the smaller children. Despite physical discomfort, the hard ground beneath you, the cold that seeps through inadequate blankets, the cramped quarters that allow little movement, there's a profound sense of security in this close arrangement. The physical proximity of family creates a buffer against the psychological weight of displacement and uncertainty. Just before sleep claims you, your mother begins to sing softly a lullaby in the dialect that combines German and Swiss elements which would eventually evolve into Pennsylvania Dutch. The melody is ancient, likely sung by Amish mothers for generations in similar circumstances of hardship and hope. The simple song speaks of God's protection through the night, of angels standing guard, of the promise of morning light after darkness. The words aren't merely comforting fiction, but expressions of genuine faith, the belief that divine care extends even to small bands of refugees huddled in mountain forests. As your mother's voice fades, replaced by the deep breathing of sleeping family members and the occasional pop of dying fires outside, your thoughts drift to the future. What will tomorrow bring? More travel certainly, more challenges likely, but also perhaps steps toward a place where your community can worship without fear. This capacity to hold both hardship and hope in the same moment, to acknowledge suffering without surrendering to despair, has always been the Amish way. Not blind optimism that denies reality, but grounded faith that frames present difficulties within a larger narrative of God's provision and purpose. Outside your shelter, snow begins to fall. Each flake catching momentarily in the lingering firelight before disappearing into the growing blanket of white. By morning, the world will be transformed again, presenting new beauty and new challenges to a people who have learned to expect both on their journey of faith. And as sleep finally overtakes you, one last thought surfaces. A recognition that despite everything lost, you carry with you the true essentials of Amish life. Faith that sustains, family that supports, community that shares both burdens and blessings, and traditions that connect past to present even in times of profound disruption. These are the ingredients of a life that can withstand persecution and displacement. Like the simple bread baked at the mill made from the most basic elements yet capable of providing essential nourishment, Amish faith distills Christianity to its fundamental components, creating a spiritual sustenance that endures when more elaborate religious expressions might falter under pressure. With this thought, you surrender to sleep. Your dreams mixing memories of home with half-formed images of places yet unseen. While the snow continues to fall silently outside, covering your tracks and creating for a few hours at least, a world unmarked by human troubles. Morning arrives with the hushed silence that follows heavy snowfall. When you open your eyes, the world outside your makeshift shelter has been transformed into a landscape of white curves and shadows. The angular edges of tree branches and rocky outcroppings have disappeared beneath smooth drifts of snow. Your first thought is both practical and worried. How will the carts move through this? As if reading your mind, your father speaks from where he sits at the shelter's entrance. The snow will make travel difficult today, he says quietly, careful not to wake the still sleeping younger children. But it will also cover our tracks completely, a mixed blessing. This balanced perspective, finding both challenge and benefit in the same circumstance, characterizes the Amish approach to life's difficulties. Nothing is viewed as entirely good or bad, but rather as part of God's complex providence that humans can never fully comprehend. Around the camp, others are stirring, emerging from shelters to assess the new conditions. The snow is deep at least to your knees in most places, with drifts reaching your waist where the wind has sculpted the fallen powder. Bishop Joder calls the men together while women begin preparing a simple breakfast. The discussion is brief but intense, weighing options that all present significant challenges. The high pass will be impossible now, one elder points out. We must take the valley route. The valley is more likely to have patrols, another counters. But the forest provides cover, your father adds. And the snow will slow the authorities as much as it slows us. Eventually, a consensus emerges. The caravan will continue through the valley, but keep to the forest edges where possible, using the trees for concealment while avoiding the deepest snow of the open meadows. Breakfast is meager: a small piece of bread, a cup of hot herbal tea sweetened with a precious bit of honey. The warmth of the drink provides as much nourishment as its actual content, heating you from within against the bitter cold. We need to strengthen the runners on the carts, your father announces after finishing his tea. The wheels won't turn easily in this snow. This practical adaptation, converting wheeled carts to makeshift sleds, demonstrates the Amish genius for improvisation. With limited tools and materials, the men quickly fashion wooden runners that can be attached to the cart bottoms, allowing them to slide over snow rather than plow through it. You help your father with your family's cart, holding pieces in place while he lashes them securely with rope. The work is made more difficult by the cold, which numbs fingers and makes rope stiff and uncooperative. Remember when we built the ice sled last winter? You ask Hans as he joins the effort. This is just a bigger version. He grins momentarily, looking like the carefree boy he was before your flight began, before persecution transformed him overnight into something closer to a man. That was a good sled. I went all the way down to the creek without falling off. These small moments of childhood memories and sibling connection provide essential psychological respite amid the stress of displacement. The Amish have always understood that resilience comes not just from physical endurance, but from maintaining the social bonds that give life meaning. By mid-morning, the caravan is ready to move out. The modified carts loaded and the animals harnessed. Progress is painfully slow. The horses struggle through snow that reaches their knees. And even with the new runners, the carts require constant attention to prevent them from tipping on the uneven terrain. Everyone who can walk does so, including children as young as 5 or 6. Only the elderly, the infirm, and infants ride in the carts, keeping weight to a minimum to ease the burden on the straining horses. The physical exertion of walking through deep snow quickly saps your strength. Each step requires lifting your foot high enough to clear the snow's surface, then pushing down through the resistance to find solid ground. Within an hour, your legs burn with fatigue. And sweat dampens your clothing despite the freezing temperature, a dangerous condition that could lead to deadly chills if you stop moving long enough to cool down. Step where I step, your father advises, breaking trail ahead of you. Save your strength. Following his footprints reduces the effort somewhat, but the going remains brutally difficult. Your younger siblings struggle the most, their shorter legs forcing them to practically climb through the snow rather than walk through it. At one point, you notice your 7-year-old sister falling behind, her face flushed with exertion and her breathing labored. Without a word, you scoop her onto your back, carrying her piggyback style despite your own exhaustion. "Thank you," she whispers, her cold cheek pressed against your neck. "We help each other," you reply simply. That's what family does. This ethic of mutual aid, of the stronger assisting the weaker without resentment or record-keeping, lies at the heart of Amish community life. From the youngest age, children absorb the lesson that individual welfare is inseparable from group welfare, that self-interest must always be balanced against the needs of others. The caravan stops more frequently today, allowing people to rest and warm themselves before continuing. During one such break, you notice Margaret standing alone at the edge of the group, her gaze fixed on the distant valley below. "Are you looking for patrols?" you ask, joining her. She shakes her head. "Just wondering where my father is right now. If he's warm enough, if he can see the same mountains we see." The separation of families due to persecution creates a particular kind of pain, the agony of not knowing a loved one's fate, of imagining worst-case scenarios with no information to confirm or refute them. "My mother says we should picture him in God's hands," Margaret continues. "But that's hard to do when your own hands are so cold you can barely feel them." You don't offer platitudes or easy reassurance. Instead, you simply stand with her, sharing the weight of uncertainty that no theological explanation can fully lighten. This too is characteristically Amish, the willingness to bear witness to another's suffering without trying to explain midway or minimize it. By early afternoon, the snow begins to fall again, adding fresh layers to the already challenging terrain. The wind picks up as well, driving icy particles into exposed skin with stinging force. Several of the younger children begin to cry from cold and exhaustion, their tears freezing on their cheeks almost as soon as they fall. "We need shelter soon," your mother tells the bishop when he passes by your family's position in the caravan. "The little ones can't go much further today." He nods grimly. "There's an abandoned hunting lodge about an hour ahead, if my memory serves. We'll aim for that." The promise of actual shelter walls and a roof, perhaps even a fireplace, provides motivation to continue despite increasingly harsh conditions. Even the horses seem to move with renewed purpose, as if sensing the possibility of respite ahead. When the lodge finally comes into view, a low, sturdy structure nestled against a rocky hillside. A collective sigh of relief passes through the group. It's not large enough to house everyone comfortably, but compared to the makeshift shelters of previous nights, it seems like a palace. "The men will sleep in the carts and under canvas," Bishop Joder announces once everyone has arrived. "Women, children, and the elderly will use the lodge." This arrangement, prioritizing the most vulnerable, reflects the Amish understanding of masculine responsibility. Men don't claim privilege based on their leadership positions, but instead use their greater physical resilience to ensure others' comfort and safety. Inside the lodge is dusty but sound, with a large central fireplace and enough floor space for perhaps 40 people to sleep if packed closely together. Women immediately set to work sweeping away debris, arranging bedding, and preparing the fireplace for what will be the first real fire many have enjoyed in days. Your mother puts you in charge of the younger children while she helps organize the lodge space. You lead them in simple games, guessing riddles, playing finger games, singing songs quietly to distract them from cold and hunger while the adults work. "Tell us about when Grandpa built our house," your youngest brother requests, snuggling against your side for warmth. So, you begin the story, one you've heard countless times, about how your grandfather cleared the land, prepared the timber, and gathered the community for a barn raising that transformed a pile of lumber into a home in a single day. The familiar narrative creates a thread of continuity between the settled past and the uncertain present, reminding the children that displacement, while painful, is not the whole of your people's story. As evening approaches, the lodge is transformed. Clean straw covers the floor, providing insulation against the cold ground. The fire burns steadily in the hearth, its warmth reaching even the corners of the room. Women have organized cooking stations using the fire and what few pots were brought along to prepare hot food, a luxury after days of cold travel rations. The meal is simple but nourishing. A thick porridge made from ground grain enhanced with dried vegetables and small pieces of preserved meat. What elevates it above ordinary sustenance is the hot tea served afterward, brewed from pine needles gathered outside the lodge. Pine needle tea keeps away winter sickness, an elder woman explains as she distributes the aromatic drink. "Our mothers and grandmothers used it when medicines couldn't be had." This practical herbalism using available plants for health purposes represents another layer of Amish self-sufficiency. Without access to formal medical care, communities developed extensive knowledge of natural remedies passed down through generations of women. After the meal, families arranged themselves for sleep, creating small islands of privacy within the communal space through the careful positioning of bodies and belongings. Despite the crowded conditions, there's a profound sense of security in being surrounded by community, in hearing the breathing of dozens of people united by faith and purpose. Before sleep, however, comes a moment unique to this evening. Something that hasn't been possible during the hurried camps of previous nights. Bishop Joder calls for the telling of stories. We've traveled hard these past days, he explains, caring for our body's needs. Tonight, let us nourish our spirits as well. What follows is not formal worship, but something equally sacred in Amish culture, the oral transmission of community history. Elders take turns recounting tales from Anabaptist history. Stories of faith maintained despite persecution, of divine provision in times of great need, of ancestors who faced challenges similar to those confronting the community now. One elder tells of Felix Manz, among the first Anabaptist martyrs drowned in the Limmat River in 1527 for insisting on adult baptism. Another recounts the story of Dirk Willems, who turned back to rescue his pursuer who had fallen through ice only to be captured and executed for his Anabaptist faith. These aren't merely historical accounts but foundational narratives that shape Amish identity. By placing current hardships within this longer story of faithfulness amid persecution, the elders provide a framework for understanding present suffering as part of a meaningful continuum rather than random misfortune. For children especially, these stories serve as essential preparation for the challenges of Amish life. They learn that their faith has always carried a cost, that their community has always faced opposition, that their current journey is not an aberration, but part of a pattern stretching back generations. As the storytelling session winds down, Bishop Joder invites anyone with particular concerns to come forward for prayer. Several do so: a mother worried about her infant's persistent cough, an older man whose joints have swollen painfully in the cold, a young woman who hasn't heard from her betrothed since the settlement was scattered. Each receives the same careful attention, a listening ear, a gentle hand on the shoulder, a prayer offered in the German dialect that connects this moment to countless similar moments throughout Amish history. There's no promise of miraculous intervention, just the assurance of God's presence and the community's support, whatever the outcome. When all specific needs have been addressed, the bishop leads a brief communal prayer, asking for safety through the night and guidance for the journey ahead. Then families settle into their sleeping arrangements, the lodge gradually growing quiet except for the occasional crack of burning wood in the fireplace. Despite your exhaustion, sleep proves elusive. The unfamiliar surroundings, the weight of uncertainty about tomorrow, the physical discomfort of sleeping on a straw-covered floor all conspire to keep you wakeful while others around you drift into slumber. In the flickering firelight, you notice Margaret, also awake, sitting up with her arms wrapped around her knees, her expression distant. Without disturbing those sleeping nearby, you make your way over to her. "Can't sleep," you whisper, settling beside her. She shakes her head. "I keep thinking about what happens if we make it to a mental. Will we build new homes, plant fields, start over as if nothing happened, and then wait for the authorities to find us again?" It's a question that has lurked at the edges of your own thoughts. The recognition that this journey may not lead to permanent safety, but merely temporary reprieve. The cycle of settlement, persecution, and flight has defined Anabaptist existence for generations. What reason is there to think it will end with this migration? My father says we just need to be faithful for our portion of the path. You finally respond, "The rest belongs to God and to those who come after us." This perspective, focusing on present faithfulness rather than guaranteed outcomes, characterizes Amish theology at its most profound. They have never expected comfort or security in this world, never measured success by material stability or freedom from persecution. The goal has always been fidelity to their understanding of Christian discipleship. Whatever the earthly consequences, Margaret considers your words, then nods slowly. "I suppose that's all anyone can do. Be faithful in their own time." The conversation lapses into comfortable silence. Around you, the lodge is a landscape of sleeping forms, families huddled together for warmth and comfort. Despite the circumstances, or perhaps because of them, there's something beautiful about this scene, this community bound by shared faith and mutual care. Eventually, fatigue overcomes even your restless thoughts, and you return to your family's sleeping area. Your younger siblings are curled together like puppies, your parents positioned protectively on either side. You find your place among them. The familiar presence of family creating a sense of home even in this borrowed shelter. As sleep finally approaches, your thoughts drift to the journey ahead. Tomorrow will bring more challenges, continued travel through difficult terrain, the constant threat of discovery, the uncertainty of reception in a mental. But it will also bring opportunities for the community to demonstrate its resilience, for faith to prove its practical value in crisis, for the Amish way of life to adapt once again to changing circumstances. This adaptability within constancy has always been the secret of Amish survival. While maintaining unwavering commitment to core theological principles, they have shown remarkable flexibility in practical matters, changing locations, adjusting agricultural practices, adopting or rejecting various technologies based on their impact on community values. Your last conscious thought before sleep claims you as a recognition of this paradox that the Amish, often perceived as rigid and unchanging, have actually survived because of their capacity to discern which changes threaten their essential identity and which merely require adaptation to new realities. And as the fire burns low, casting the lodge into deepening shadow, the Amish community rests not in perfect security or comfort, but in the knowledge that they face whatever comes together, guided by faith that has sustained them through generations of challenge and change. Outside, the snow continues to fall, adding fresh layers to the white blanket covering the landscape. By morning, many of yesterday's struggles will be buried beneath new challenges, requiring fresh reserves of strength and determination. But for now, in this moment of relative peace, the community sleeps, gathering the physical and spiritual resources needed for whatever lies ahead. Your sleep gradually deepens, your mind releasing its hold on worries and questions. In dreams, images of home mingle with glimpses of unknown places that might become home. The past and possible future intertwine, connected by the constant thread of Amish identity that remains unbroken despite external disruptions. And in the deepest part of the night, when even the fire has subsided to glowing embers, a profound stillness settles over the lodge. A momentary respite in a journey defined by movement. A pocket of peace in lives shaped by persecution. A brief interlude of rest before the community once again takes up the challenging path of faith in a world that often finds their existence threatening. Morning light filters softly through the lodge's small windows, painting golden rectangles across the straw-covered floor. Outside, the world has transformed yet again. The snow has stopped and the sun shines from a clear blue sky, turning the landscape into a dazzling expanse of white broken only by the dark verticals of pine trees. You wake to the gentle sounds of a community stirring quiet conversations, the rustle of blankets being folded, the soft footsteps of women already busy with morning tasks. The fire has been rekindled, and the smell of pine needle tea mingles with the sharper scent of wood smoke. The weather has blessed us, your father says, returning from outside. Snow dusts his beard and shoulders, melting quickly in the relative warmth of the lodge. Clear skies and the wind has died down. This news travels quickly through the gathered families, raising spirits considerably after the brutal conditions of yesterday. A calm, sunny day feels like direct divine intervention, what the Amish would call a tender mercy. Breakfast is more substantial than it's been since leaving home porridge again, but enriched with dried apples and a careful portion of precious honey. The hot food and bright morning create an atmosphere almost resembling normally, with children giggling over shared jokes and adults discussing the day's journey with renewed energy. We should reach the outskirts of Emmental by nightfall, Bishop Joder announces once people have eaten. Our contact there, Brother Martin, will meet us at the old mill on the eastern approach. The promise of reaching their destination, of ending this particular phase of flights, ends a ripple of emotion through the group. Not quite celebration, for Amish culture avoids exuberance, even in good times, but a quieter satisfaction, a collective exhalation of breath held too long. Preparations for departure happen with practiced efficiency. Women organize food supplies and children's needs. Men check harnesses and cart runners, making repairs where necessary. Young people fetch fresh water and help the elderly prepare for another day of difficult travel. Will we have real houses again in Emmental? Your youngest sister asks as you help her into her coat. Eventually, you tell her, choosing honesty over false reassurance. First, we'll likely stay with families already settled there. It will take time to build new homes. She considers this seriously, her small face solemn beneath her bonnet. I liked our old house. Grandfather built it. I know, you say, kneeling to meet her eyes. But remember what Mother says. Home isn't just the building. It's the people who love you, she nods. Though the concept remains abstract for a child her age, physical places hold such importance for the young, who haven't yet learned to carry home within themselves the way adults must sometimes do. As the caravan reassembles outside the lodge, the brilliant sunshine makes the snow-covered landscape almost painfully bright. Several people fashion improvised snow spectacles, thin pieces of wood with narrow slits that reduce the glare while still allowing vision. Here, your father says, handing you one of these simple devices. Wear this today. Snow blindness is a serious danger. This practical knowledge, understanding that eyes can be damaged by snow reflection and knowing how to prevent it, exemplifies the Amish approach to survival. They rely not on complex technology, but on generations of accumulated wisdom about working with natural conditions rather than against them. The journey resumes following a valley that gradually descends toward more populated areas. The snow remains deep, but the modified sleds work better on today's compact surface than they did in yesterday's fresh powder. Progress, while still challenging, happens at a steadier pace. As the day advances, subtle changes appear in the landscape. The wilderness gradually gives way to occasional signs of human presence. A woodcutter's hut here, the remains of a charcoal burner's camp there. You're approaching the edges of settled territory again, with all the opportunities and dangers that entails. Keep alert, passes as a whispered message through the caravan. Watch for patrols. The community's movement becomes more cautious. When crossing open areas, they do so in smaller groups rather than as a complete caravan, reducing visibility from a distance. Scouts range ahead into the sides, watching for any sign of authorities who might challenge or arrest Anabaptist refugees. By midday, you've reached a forested hill overlooking a broad valley. In the distance, the first scattered farms of the Emmental region are visible, smoke rising from chimneys, cleared fields now covered in snow, occasional figures moving around homesteads. We're almost there, Hans says, excitement breaking through his usual stoicism. Almost, your father cautions. But the last stretch of a journey can be the most dangerous. We must be especially careful now. The caravan pauses for a brief meal and rest, using the forest cover to remain hidden while people eat and check equipment one final time. There's a tangible sense of both relief and tension, so close to temporary safety, yet still vulnerable to discovery. During this break, Bishop Joder gathers the adults for a final council before entering the Emmental area. You're considered old enough to join, standing at the edge of the circle as the leaders discuss strategy. Brother Martin will meet us at dusk, the bishop explains. He'll guide individual families to homes that have agreed to shelter us temporarily. We cannot stay together as a group once we reach the valley. It would draw too much attention. This news creates visible unease. After days of moving as a unified community, the prospect of separation, even temporary, feels threatening. The Amish draw strength from collective identity, from the physical presence of others who share their faith and practices. How will we know when it's safe to gather for worship? One man asks, voicing a concern central to Amish life. Regular community worship isn't optional, but essential to their understanding of Christian faith. Brother Martin's community has established signals. The bishop assures them. They've been holding secret services for years. They know how to worship safely, even under watch. The existence of an established Anabaptist community in Emmental, one that has developed methods for maintaining faith despite persecution, offers reassurance. You won't be pioneering survival strategies, but joining others who have already adapted to local conditions. As the meeting concludes, families begin preparing for the final leg of the journey and for the imminent separation that will follow. Parents speak quietly with children, explaining that they might live with unfamiliar families for a time. Friends exchange promises to find each other once settled. Small gifts change hand tokens of connection to be carried during the coming separation. Take this, Margaret says, pressing a small wooden carving into your palm. It's a simple cross worn smooth from being carried in a pocket. My father made it. I have another. When we see each other again, we'll know we both made it safely. The gesture strikes deeper than its simplicity might suggest. In Amish culture, where material possessions are limited and personal adornment discouraged, such exchanges carry profound meaning. "I'll keep it safe, you promise," tucking the cross into your inner pocket alongside the Bible pouch your father entrusted to you days earlier. The caravan moves out again in mid-afternoon, descending gradually toward the valley floor. The journey now requires extreme caution. You're entering areas where patrols are more common and where ordinary citizens might report suspicious travelers to authorities. "Look natural," your father advises, as your family's cart joins a more established road. Like farmers returning from a trip to relatives, not refugees fleeing persecution. It's harder than it sounds. Days of hard travel have left everyone exhausted and tense. Their body language broadcasting weariness rather than the relaxed posture of routine travel. Even the youngest children sense the need for caution, their usual chatter subdued to whispers or silence. As twilight approaches, you reach the agreed meeting point, an abandoned mill on the eastern edge of the Emmental Valley. The building stands dark and apparently empty, its water wheel since fallen into disrepair. The caravan approaches cautiously, scouts moving ahead to ensure the site isn't under watch. For a tense few minutes, nothing happens. The community waits in the gathering darkness. Every sense alert for danger. Then, so quietly you almost miss it. A low whistle comes from the trees beyond the mill, 3 notes in a pattern that Bishop Joder clearly recognizes. "It's Brother Martin," he says with visible relief. "Wait here while I speak with him." The bishop disappears into the shadows beyond the mill. Minutes pass with excruciating slowness. The community poised between hope and fear. Finally, 2 figures emerge from the darkness. Bishop Joder and a shorter man with a full beard and the plain clothing that marks him as part of an Anabaptist community. "Brothers and sisters," the bishop announces, "this is Brother Martin who will guide us to safety." The stranger surveys the gathered families. His expression a mixture of compassion and concern. "We must move quickly," he says without preamble. "Patrols have been increased lately. I have people waiting to guide each family to temporary shelter." What follows is a carefully orchestrated dispersal. From the surrounding forest emerge a dozen local Anabaptists, each assigned to lead 1 or 2 refugee families to safe houses scattered throughout the valley. The goodbyes are hurried, emotional, but restrained by necessity and cultural habit. "We'll send word once it's safe to gather," Brother Martin assures everyone. "Until then, trust your hosts and remain as inconspicuous as possible." Your family is assigned to a quiet man named Joseph, who drives a farm cart larger than yours. "Transfer your belongings quickly," he instructs. "We have the farthest to go." The shift happens with remarkable efficiency. Your family's modest possessions moving from one cart to another in minutes. Your own cart and horse will be taken by another family heading in a different direction. A precaution to prevent authorities from tracking specific vehicles they might have described in reports. "God be with you," Bishop Joder says, clasping your father's hand in farewell until we meet again for worship. Then you're moving away from the only community you've known for days, following a stranger into deeper darkness. Trust your only option. Your younger siblings press close against your mother, seeking reassurance in her physical presence. As the familiar faces of neighbors and friends disappear into the night, Joseph proves taciturn but kind, offering only necessary information as he guides your cart along back roads and farm tracks. "We'll reach my brother's farm in about 2 hours," he explains. "You'll stay in their guest house until more permanent arrangements can be made." The journey through night-darkened countryside happens in near silence. Everyone tense with the knowledge that safety remains uncertain. Occasionally, Joseph signals for complete quiet as you pass near villages or crossroads where authorities might be watching. Your father sits beside Joseph on the driver's bench, occasionally asking quiet questions about the local Anabaptist community. The answers paint a picture familiar from your own experience. A group maintaining faith despite persecution, adapting practices to ensure survival while preserving essential beliefs. "How long has your community been here?" Your father asks during a stretch of empty road. "About 30 years, Joseph replies. "Since the height of persecutions in Zurich, we've learned to be cautious but not fearful. God provides ways to continue when human authorities oppose us." This resilience, this calm certainty that faith can persist despite opposition offers profound reassurance. What your community is experiencing isn't new or unique, but part of a pattern that stretches back to Christianity's earliest days. Others have walked this path before and maintained their faith. You can do the same. The night deepens as your journey continues. The younger children fall asleep despite the cart's jolting. Exhaustion finally overcoming anxiety. Even you find yourself drifting. The rhythmic sound of horse hooves and squeaking wheels creating a hypnotic backdrop to physical fatigue. You're jerked awake when the cart suddenly stops. Joseph raises a hand for silence, his posture alert as he listens intently. In the distance, you can hear what alarmed him. The sound of multiple horses approaching along the road ahead. Into the trees, he whispers urgently. Quickly and quietly, it might be a patrol. Your family moves with practiced speed, helping the sleepy younger children from the cart and into the shelter of dense pines alongside the road. Joseph leads the horse and cart deeper among the trees where they won't be visible from the road. Huddled in darkness, you wait as the sound of horses grows louder. Your heart pounds so strongly you fear others might hear it. Beside you, your youngest brother whimpers softly until your mother places a gentle hand over his mouth. The patrol appears around a bend in the road. Four mounted men carrying lanterns, moving at a walking pace and clearly searching rather than simply traveling. Their uniforms identify them as local authorities. The same who would have arrested your family had you remained at your former home. They're looking for us, Hans whispers, his voice barely audible. Your father nods grimly but offers no comment. The situation speaks for itself. The danger is real and immediate, not some abstract threat that might or might not materialize. The patrol stops almost directly opposite your hiding place. One man dismounts and examines the road surface carefully, holding his lantern close to the ground. Tracks here, he announces to his companions. Cart tracks, fresh ones. A second man joins him. Could be anyone. Farmers move at night sometimes. Or it could be those Anabaptists we're after, the first man insists. They were reported heading this direction. The tension is unbearable as the men debate whether to follow the tracks into the forest or continue along the road. Your family remains absolutely still, barely breathing, acutely aware that discovery would mean arrest and separation. Children taken from parents, adults imprisoned, or worse. Finally, the patrol leader makes a decision. We'll continue to the crossroads, then circle back if we find nothing. These tracks are worth investigating, but I want to check the main routes first. The men remount and continue down the road, their lanterns creating bobbing points of light that gradually diminish with distance. Even after they've disappeared from sight, your group remains motionless, listening for any sign of return. We'll wait a bit longer, Joseph whispers after several minutes have passed. Then take a different route. They'll be watching this road now. The detour adds hours to your journey. Instead of following roads, Joseph leads your family across fields and through woodlots. Using his intimate knowledge of local geography to avoid areas where patrols might watch. The going is difficult, breaking trail through snow, helping the cart over rough terrain, but the alternative is capture. It's well past midnight when you finally reach the farm that will be your temporary home. The main house is dark, but a smaller building nearby shows a single light. Someone waiting up despite the late hour. My brother's wife, Joseph explains as he helps your exhausted family from the cart. She'll have food ready for you. The woman who greets you has the same quiet dignity as her husband. Plain clothing, hair covered with a simple cap, face lined from years of farm work. But her eyes show genuine welcome as she ushers your family into the warm kitchen of the guest house. You must be hungry and cold, she says, ladling steaming soup into bowls. Eat, then rest. Questions can wait until morning. The super simple vegetable broth with bread soaked in it might be the most delicious thing you've ever tasted. Or perhaps exhaustion and relief just make it seem so. Your family eats in appreciative silence, the quiet broken only by the occasional murmur of thanks or request to pass the bread. After the meal, your hostess shows you to sleeping quarters to small rooms with straw mattresses on rope beds. Luxury compared to the lodge floor or forest shelters of recent nights. Clean blankets, pillows stuffed with goose down, even a basin of warm water for washing hands and faces. These simple comforts seem almost miraculous after days of deprivation. Rest as long as needed, she tells your parents. You're safe here. Those words, "you're safe here," release something that's been held tight within your family since the moment you learned of approaching authorities. Not complete relaxation, for experience has taught that safety is always conditional and temporary, but enough easing of vigilance to allow genuine rest. Your parents ensure the younger children are settled first, helping them wash and change into the cleanest clothes available from your limited possessions. The smallest ones fall asleep almost immediately, their bodies surrendering to exhaustion now that immediate danger has passed. You help your mother unpack essential items, organizing your family's few possessions in the small space that will be home for an undetermined period. The work is comforting in its ordinariness, folding clothes, arranging personal items, creating order within constraints. "We'll be all right," your mother says softly as you work alongside her. It's not a question, but an affirmation, part of the steady faith that has carried her through this journey without complaint or visible fear. "I know," you reply, and realize you mean it. Despite everything, the loss of your home, the dangerous journey, the uncertain future you carry, a deep conviction that your family and community will endure, adapting to new circumstances while maintaining what truly matters.